just love this.
Wow.
Welcome to Amsterdam. We are so excited to show you around this beautiful city for the next 2 days. We're gonna hit up the best things to eat, see, and do here, and visit some of the most famous spots, but also some hidden gems that most people don't really know about. So we're starting off at the Dam Square, which is the heart of the historic city center of Amsterdam. It's this really beautiful square surrounded by some of the best architecture in the city. Here you have the 15th century new church, which is hardly new, but anyways. And also the Royal Palace, which dates back to the 17th century, the golden age of the Netherlands. You also have the Madame Tussauds Wax Museum here. There's the Bijenkorf, which is a really fancy upscale department store. And it's also only a short walk to the famous 9 Streets area, which is one of the most beautiful parts of the Amsterdam Canal District. Now, Amsterdam is known as the Venice of the North. It has more canals than Venice and more bridges than Paris. And why is that? Why is there so much water here? Well, a few centuries ago, Amsterdam was actually built on top of a swamp. And that is the reason why they now have over 100 kilometers of canals in the city center alone, which is just mind-boggling. And this is such a beautiful area, especially here around the 9 Streets. Is this little square on the map, and within that little square you have some of the most picturesque little streets. It is so cozy. There are so many beautiful places here to have a meal, to have a drink.
We just came across this really famous bakery called Hans Extorf. They have these coffee kuchen with chocolate inside. It's really good. No wonder they have 6,000 reviews on Google. So now we're going to show you 2 really cool things here in the 9th Streets area. First, it's pretty funny to see how crooked these little houses are.
Like I said, Amsterdam was built on top of a swamp,
Yeah.
so they had to use poles as a foundation for the housing to keep them up straight. But this was centuries ago, and
Yeah,
over the
after-
years, the houses have dropped. Sometimes they've added more floors to it, so now they're kind of droopy all over the city.
And the second thing I want to show you is right around the corner here. This is actually one of the most expensive streets in Amsterdam. It is a street with the most houses that are worth more than €1 million. Can you imagine that?
This is the Keizersgracht.
Called the Keizersgracht. You'd think for that price they'd be straight, but there's lots of very popular restaurants and bars here. But it's also pretty expensive and geared toward tourists. We're going to a different area called the Jordaan. It's a bit more of a laid-back residential area. They have some really great Dutch food there.
Now, we're kind of like hobbits today. We have come for second breakfast to this little cafe called Winkel 43 Store 43, which is really famous for one particular dish, Dutch apple pie. You can get this all over the city of Amsterdam. Pretty much every cafe will sell it, but this place sells hundreds of slices of this baby every single day. Most apple pie, for example in the US, is topped with something that looks like this. But in the Netherlands, they cover it in streusel. Oh, there you go. Okay.
That's my dish.
But in the Netherlands, they cover it in streusel, which is made of flour, butter, and sugar, and gives it a little bit of a crunchy finish. So, how good does this baby look? Whipped cream on top. Oh my goodness. This is really good. This is the best apple pie I've ever had.
I have a very typical everyday dish. I think a lot of Dutch people eat this. It's a toasted cheese sandwich. In Holland they call it toasty. The Dutch people are actually really famous for their cheese as well. It's really good. By the way, if you want to go have a coffee, do not go to a coffee shop. A coffee shop here is actually a place where they mainly sell marijuana and marijuana products. So go to a coffee house instead, coffee house.
Because if you go to a coffee shop and you order the pie, you're gonna be spaced
Woo!
out. So Amsterdam is actually the most museum-dense city in the world. There are more than 90 museums in the city center. There's the Van Gogh Museum, there's the Anne Frank House, a bunch of really famous ones. This one is the Rijksmuseum. It is to Amsterdam what the Louvre is to Paris. The Rijksmuseum is one of the finest museums in the world, home to over 8,000 masterpieces. Now, I know what you're thinking. I'll just skip this one and get some more apple pie. But trust me, even if museums aren't your thing, the Rijksmuseum will blow you away. For starters, the building itself blends Gothic and Renaissance styles, making it look like part cathedral, part palace. Inside, the first floor is pretty surprising as well. You walk in expecting paintings and instead, boom, ship models, cannons, there's a sword the size of Naick. Either I took a wrong turn or this is the world's classiest pirate museum. What you're seeing is a slice of Dutch history, a throwback to the 17th century when the Netherlands ruled the seas of the world.
Normally museums aren't really my thing, but in this case I'm really enjoying it.
But the real star of the Rijksmuseum? That would be the paintings, specifically those of the Dutch masters. This is why everyone comes here. Van Gogh is here, the painter who cut off his own ear, battled mental illness, and changed art forever with his swirling brushstrokes and explosive colors. And we saved the best for last. If you only have time for one floor, make it the top floor. Here you can admire the stunning Cuypers library that most people miss. And see the crown jewel of Dutch art, Rembrandt's The Night Watch. This is one of the most revolutionary artworks in history. Rembrandt broke every rule. He was asked to paint a simple group portrait of the city guard, but instead he created a scene bursting with movement and drama, kind of like a 17th century action movie. These days, the painting is temporarily behind glass, undergoing one of the most high-tech restorations ever attempted using AI and advanced imaging. It's still really cool though, because you get to watch people work on a 400-year-old masterpiece. I really hope there's no apple pie on their fingers.
Alright, we have come to the food hallen, literally the food halls. They've got dozens and dozens of street food shops here, but of course also some Dutch traditional classics. I'm gonna start off with the first one, which is herring. It's probably one of the most traditional dishes here. This is actually raw herring that has been brined in salt. It's really fresh, and they give you some onions with it and some pickles. I don't like pickles, so I'm gonna skip those, but wow. You can really taste like this is super fresh. And this is a bit of a fusion dish actually. In between here we have shrimp croquettes, which is made out of shrimp and then a nice whole paste in it that's fried and breaded. But then they have these Asian style buns called bao. That is really good. There's some limey zest on it, gives it like lots of freshness, and then you have the saltiness of the shrimp.
The Netherlands is a really multicultural country. You have so many foreign influences here, and you can notice it in the streets of Amsterdam. Even just walking around, you will hear dozens of languages throughout a single day. And I think the food halls are a really good representation of that. I have a Greek pita with tzatziki and sweet potato fries and vegetables. Really good. So the Netherlands are very known for having a bicycle cycling culture. In Amsterdam, for example, there are more than 880,000 bicycles and there's only 920,000 people. Now, sometimes those bikes end up in the canal, either by accident or they get stolen and the evidence is dumped in the water. This company, this boat here, just does nothing else all day but go around and get the bikes out of the water. If you want a good deal on a bike, I think like those will be bottom prices.
Woo!
In an hour or two, we're gonna take a sunset cruise on one of the boats that go around the canals, which is supposed to be a really nice way to see Amsterdam. But before we do that, we're gonna pop into this museum, Willem Holthuizen Museum. From what I read, this gives you a really good look inside what the lives of the people who lived here along the canals would have been like back in the days. Most of the houses here along the canals actually belonged to merchants. In the 17th century, which was the Dutch golden age, business was booming and Amsterdam was like a global hub for commerce. These were like the elite, the rich people of Amsterdam.
Sir, after you. The city of Amsterdam used to tax people on how wide the facade of their home was, so no one showed off too much.
Inside though, people were blinging up their homes like they were on MTV Cribs. Even just walking around here feels expensive. I thought they would have like a small courtyard in the back, but this house actually has a full backyard with like hedges. It's very impressive. Didn't expect this at all. To put all this wealth into perspective, the Dutch East India Company, which is the overarching organization that most Dutch merchants were tied to back in the day, is often called the richest corporation in human history, with an enterprise value that, in today's money, would be in the trillions. So we are back at the Rijksmuseum, and actually we're going to do the cruise from here. This is the office of City Sightseeing Amsterdam. We're going to do a 1-hour canal cruise, but I just thought it was super cool that they also have a hop-on, hop-off boat that cruises along the canals all day, and you can just use it like a hop-on, hop-off bus. Anyway, we're going to do the 1-hour cruise. This is our vessel of choice, and if we're lucky, we're going to see a beautiful sunset over the canals of Amsterdam. Are you cold?
I'm a little bit cold, but it's going to be nice and toasty inside, I think. I'm really excited to see Amsterdam at night from the canals from a cruise.
Okay, ladies and gentlemen, welcome on board. My name is Guido and I'm going to be your captain, so everybody have the earphones right, the headsets. Budapest, guys.
So cool.
I really love this canal cruise. It's really relaxing. It's a nice way to see the houses. And even though we've already seen a bunch of these houses, with the audio guide to get some explanations about them, because it's so tranquil, you really get the time to like properly look at the houses and see all the small little details that make this so special.
Our boat also briefly took us out towards a much newer modern part of Amsterdam. That looks totally different, doesn't it? That's part of our plan for tomorrow. So we've come to the Pancake Company at the canals for what I would call a really, really nice breakfast. Dutch pancakes are really something that is typically had in the afternoon, but if you want to go all out in the morning, you can do this. I took the pancake with strawberry, banana and Nutella and a little Dutch flag on top. But you also have savory options here, which is quite rare, I think, in most countries in the world. But personally, I'm really happy that I took this one because I have a really big sweet tooth and Amsterdam is really good for my sweet tooth. I'm gonna take one bite with everything. Oh god, that maybe 2 bites. I mean, how can this be bad? Pancake, good. Strawberry, good. Nutella, good. I'm happy.
The one I'm having, it has apple, it has bacon baked into the pancake. Wow. I could eat a second pancake with this one, second breakfast.
If I have 2 of these, I'm gonna have diabetes. So today we're going to head to the Royal Palace this morning, and in the afternoon we're actually going to go outside of the canal area.
This is the flower market. It's actually quite opposite to the Pancake Company where we just were.
They mostly sell tulips here. Tulips are a really big thing in the Netherlands. They have them in every color of the rainbow, and also during the right time of year, which I think is March through May or something.
Yep, end of March till end of May approximately.
The entire Netherlands is filled with these fields and fields of tulips.
Yeah. They even have a cheese museum here, but I mean, really old cheese. I'm not a really big fan of that, so just gonna stick with the fresh cheese shop.
17th century cheese.
Here we have some old cheese. Dates back to the 17th century. Looks a bit moldy, but...
So you're just walking to the Royal Palace now, and it just dawned on me that actually yesterday we spent quite a bit of money. I put the total here on the screen, but I don't want to give you the impression that everything you do in Amsterdam has to be like super expensive. So today we're gonna try to be a little bit more budget friendly, and also to give you some really good tips on how to stay on a good budget while you're in Amsterdam and not break the bank.
We're here at the Royal Palace. I'm curious to see what it looks like on the inside. I think there's gonna be golden cheese inside.
Right in the heart of Amsterdam, on the Dam Square, sits the Royal Palace, originally built as a city hall in the 1600s, back when Amsterdam was one of the richest cities in the world. But then Napoleon's brother, Louis Bonaparte, showed up, took one look at it and said, yeah, this would make for a nice living room.
and so the building became a royal residence. Today, however, the palace is mostly used for state visits and ceremonial purposes. The current Dutch king Willem-Alexander and Queen Maxima don't actually live here. When you visit the palace, you can wander through the study rooms, the guest quarters where the foreign heads of state get to stay, and the grand hall where they host royal banquets. Not a bad setting for a slice of apple pie. Now, a quick budget tip: if you're coming to Amsterdam and you're planning to do a bunch of museums, it might be worth getting the museumkaart, which gives you unlimited access to 500 Dutch museums for a full year. It's 75 euros per person, but just keep in mind we already spent more than 50 euros each on just the 3 museums that you saw in this video.
This is actually what I really love about Europe. Like, we spent the last 2.5 years traveling North America, Central America, South America, which was great. But now to be back in Europe where there's palaces like this one, and just there aren't a lot of places in the world that have this. Which is also why we're traveling Europe for this entire year. I'm gonna show you the very best that Europe has to offer.
What I'm looking forward to most in Europe is the food. Speaking of food, these fries are from Fabel Friet. It's a very famous shop. They're really popular on Instagram or TikTok or something. I don't know what kids do these days. We took one with parmesan and truffle with mayo. That is good.
So we found a local news article by an Amsterdam journalist who was testing all the meatball subs in Amsterdam. And he said that this butcher right behind us, Koopman Delicacies, has the best meatball sub in the city center of Amsterdam. It's not cheap though, it's like a small meatball sub and it's 5 euros, which is, it better be good, it better be good.
Yeah, meatball in there, and it has some satay sauce, which is Indonesian, but it's actually really popular in the Netherlands as well.
Satay sauce is basically based on peanut butter, so it's a little bit like a sweeter variety, I think, of the peanut butter. It looks good. And it's good. 5 euros is a lot, but it really does hit the spot. Wow.
Sometimes people are a little bit skeptical about all the food that we eat and we like everything. But we actually do a lot of research. Like this article, you can't like really just find it by googling like best eats in Amsterdam. If you do a lot of research, you find the best spots.
And Naick does. Now, let's go and discover the modern side of Amsterdam.
To get to the modern side of Amsterdam, Amsterdam North, you have to pass by the central station here. Really, really beautiful. This is like the northern end of the city center. And right behind it, you can take the free ferry to cross the river to get to Amsterdam North, which is where we're going right now.
Most visitors to Amsterdam never cross the water, but just a free ferry ride away, Amsterdam North is a whole different world.
We've made it to the other side, to the modern side of Amsterdam.
The first thing you see here is the beautiful modern building of the Eye Museum. It's a film museum, and as well as the Amsterdam Lookout Tower, where you can go up, have dinner there in the tower that turns around 360 degrees. There's also a lookout platform. This is the entrance to the lookout point where the elevator is. It's important though, no dogs allowed, unless it's Snoop Dogg. Snoop Doggy Dogg! Pretty happy I'm not high.
Here you get some of the best views of Amsterdam. Take the elevator up to the lookout of the Adam Tower for a 360 panoramic view of the city. And if you dare, swing over the edge 100 meters above the city on Europe's highest swing.
It's really cool to see this different side to Amsterdam though, like
Definitely, because we all know like the old city. This is really cool as well.
in like an hour we're going to probably the most notorious, infamous neighborhood in all of Amsterdam. But first, we're gonna take a small walk here in this more modern area.
But Amsterdam North wasn't always this trendy. For most of the 20th century, it was a gritty working-class district, home to shipyards, factories, and warehouses. The NDSM shipyard was one of the largest in Europe, employing thousands of workers. But when the industry collapsed, so did the neighborhood. Unemployment skyrocketed, buildings were abandoned, and crime took over. It was the Bronx of Amsterdam. Then, in the early 2000s, artists and creatives moved in, drawn by cheap rent and empty industrial spaces. These days, it's a massive cultural hub, where warehouses are filled with studios and street art, including one of the largest murals in the world, a massive portrait of Anne Frank. Anne Frank was a Jewish girl who spent years in hiding in Amsterdam during World War II. She kept a diary chronicling her life in the hideout, which has made her world famous.
The area of Amsterdam North is a pretty relaxed neighborhood. It's actually a mixed neighborhood. There's some residential areas here. There's also a lot of greenery and nature. And then behind me you have Bunk. It's a decommissioned church that they turned into a hotel and hostel. On the inside they've kept the old church, but they put pods inside where you can sleep in, which is really cool.
Now, a quick budget tip. Amsterdam is an incredible city, but it can also be a bit expensive. At a sit-down restaurant, even a simple Coke can cost you $4. So to save money, here's a tip. Head to Albert Heijn. The Dutch supermarket chain is everywhere in the city and locals love it. They offer $1 coffees all day long, plus plenty of ready-to-eat meals. After visiting Amsterdam North, we went back to the Canal District, grabbed some Dutch cheese, 2 fresh salads, apples, and coffee at Albert Heijn, all for about $15, and we had a canal-side picnic in the sun.
So we are back in the city center and now we're gonna visit one of the most famous parts of Amsterdam. This is the Walletjes, which is the neighborhood that the red light district, the sex district in Amsterdam, is a part of. Now in any other city I would probably tell you to avoid the red light district, but not in Amsterdam. Here it is not a dirty or super seedy or dangerous neighborhood at all. It is actually a pretty big stop on any tourist itinerary of the city. Most people come here to just have a look around because there's lots of bars here, there's lots of coffee shops here. Remember the coffee shops we told you where you do not get the pie because ooh. And obviously there's also a lot of gentlemen's clubs and sex workers here. It actually started back in the 14th century when this was a really popular area for bars and distilleries that targeted the many sailors that came into Amsterdam by boat. And back then the ladies of the night would kind of browse these streets holding a red lantern and looking for guys to take back to their room. In the 17th century the bars and distilleries disappeared into a different area, but the girls stayed behind, and now there are a lot of windows here in these small little streets where you can see red lights and girls offering their services. But contrary to what you might think, it's not super weird. It's just guys hanging around here or whatever, trying to,
It's not super seedy or dangerous at all.
It's not seedy, it's not dangerous. People actually come here for their stag parties or hen do's all the time. Amsterdam is a really free-spirited city. Prostitution is entirely legal here as well. So I was gonna say there's nothing weird about it. Maybe that's not entirely true, but you have to come here and it won't be as weird as you think.
By the way, the windows with ladies in them that do not have a red light but a blue or a purple light, they're not real ladies. Just keep that in mind. Yeah.
Now, if you love food and you want to know where you can find the best food in Amsterdam, watch this video next. And we'll see you in the next one.